Okay, everyone. Welcome to another tutorial. Today, what we will be doing, we will be looking at the database section of the SBA. All right. So we looked at the spreadsheet section before, which everyone should have completed already. So we are going to move on and look at the database section. Now, before we start, please be reminded that if you are if you have not yet finished the spreadsheet, you won't be able to begin the database. The spreadsheet is a prerequisite for the database. The database is a prerequisite for the word processing section of the SBA. So you need to complete a section before you can move on to another section, because the information being used on each section will be used on another. So every single information that you have in the spreadsheet will be exported to the database, right? So if you have no information at all on the spreadsheet, or if you did not do the spreadsheet, then you won't have anything to export to the database. So I advise everyone to look at the tutorials being done previously for the spreadsheet, complete the spreadsheet, and then you can begin the database. All right, enough of the chit chat. Let me kind of zoom out. So we looked at the spreadsheet before I mentioned. Now it's time for us to look at the database. So let us go through the database question. So it says that you are required to use a suitable application to better organize the student data, subjects, and payments made. 3 tables must be used to store the data. First, a table to store students' personal data. 2, a table to store the subject information. And 3, a table to store payment information. Now note, ensure that each field has an appropriate name, data type, field size, and validation if needed. All right, moving on. It says that you should test your database by generating queries, reports, and control forms. So we're going to create a form, we're going to create some queries, and we're going to create a report. So for the form section, you need to create a form and a subform to display the student and subject information. Save the form as student FRM, and then we are going to create some queries. There were some discrepancies found among the male students. To correct this, a list of all male students is to be generated, sorted by last name. Save the query as male QRY. There's another query that needs to be done. It said to further assist with payments, a past student is offering a grant of 15% to be paid for students who did not qualify for a scholarship but are doing 5 to 7 subjects. The query should include the student's ID, name of student, sponsorship status, total subjects, total fees charged, amount to be paid for the grant, balance remaining. The query should be sorted by the grant's amount in descending order. Save the query and name it as Grant QRY. Please remember, descending order is from the largest to the smallest. And then the report. So we're going to create a report that shows the name of the student, their first, middle, and last name, their gender, their date of birth, if they do maths or not, if they do English or not, total subjects, number of practicals that they're doing, the number of orals that they're doing, and the total fee charged to each student. The report is to be grouped by the gender, sorted in ascending order by the last name. Show the total for the fees charged for each group and have an appropriate title. Save the report as registration RPT. And that is it for our database. So without further ado, let us begin. So what you need to do first and foremost, you need to open Microsoft Access. When you open Microsoft Access, you are going to select the option that says blank desktop database. I repeat, select the option that says blank desktop database. All right, select that. When you do so, I'm asking you kindly to name the file using your name. I'm having difficulties identifying the files that you sent because you do not name them properly. So, for example, I will be naming this database. And then you click on create. If you have a specific folder in which you want to save your database, your SB, or this specific database, you use the icon right here and you select the destination on your computer that you wish to save it. Alright, so I will be saving this one in a folder that is designated specifically for this class and this section of the SBA. I'm going to call it the sample. Alright, so if you realize right here, my destination, so when I save the file, this is where it will go. After you have done all of that, or if you want to let it stay at documents, you click on create. When you click on create, you will be seeing this. Right? Now, table 1, by default, that's what's going to come up on your screen by default. But we're not going to use this table. As I said to you before, we will be exporting files from our spreadsheet to the database. So to close this table, to your left where you see an X, if you hover the cursor, the icon, you will see that it says close table 1. You click on that and then your table 1 is closed. All right. Now the next move is we're going to open our spreadsheet. All right. For the grant, balance remaining, the query should be sorted by the grant's amount in descending order. Save the query and name it as grant QRY. Please remember, descending order is from the largest to the smallest. And then the report. So we're going to create a report that shows the name of the student, their first, middle, and last name, their gender, their date of birth, if they do maths or not, if they do English or not, total subjects, number of practicals that they're doing, the number of orals that they're doing, and the total fee charged to each student. The report is to be grouped by the gender, sorted in ascending order by the last name. Show the total for the fees charged for each group and have an appropriate title. Save the report as registration RPT. And that is it for our database. So, without further ado, let us begin. So what you need to do first and foremost, you need to open Microsoft Access. When you open Microsoft Access, you are going to select the option that says blank desktop database. I repeat, select the option that says blank desktop database. All right, select that. When you do so, I'm asking you kindly to name the file using your name. I'm having difficulties identifying the files that you sent because you do not name them properly. So, for example, I will be naming this database. And then you click on create. If you have a specific folder in which you want to save your database, your SB, or this specific database, you use the icon right here and you select the destination on your computer that you wish to save it. Alright, so I will be saving this one in a folder that is designated specifically for this class and this section of the SBA. I'm going to call it the sample. All right. So if you realize right here, my destination. So when I save the file, this is where it will go. After you have done all of that, or if you want to let it stay at documents, you click on create. When you click on create, you will be seeing this. All right. Now table 1, by default, that's what's going to come up on your screen by default. But we're not going to use this table. As I said to you before, we will be exporting files from our spreadsheet to the database. So to close this table, to your left where you see an X, if you hover the cursor, the icon, you will see that it says close table 1. You click on that and your table 1 is closed. All right. Now the next move is we're going to open our spreadsheet. All right. So let me open Microsoft Excel. I'm going to open my spreadsheet. Everybody should have completed already, right? Well, because this is a sample, I do not have the middle names there, but everyone else should have this column populated with a middle name for each student. So how do we export the information from the Excel to the database? Please observe carefully. You are going to highlight the entire table. All right. So when you open your spreadsheet file and you open task A, you are going to highlight the table. Only the table that is populated. Only the columns and rows that are populated. How are we going to do that? You are going to highlight them. And I think I have taught this already to you, but for tutorial purposes, I will repeat myself. You place the cursor on the first cell or the first row or the first column, which is A. Make sure that the cursor is showing the icon looking like a thick white cross, as you are seeing. When you see that icon, you're going to select it, right? Keep your fingers on the left button of your mouse or your touchpad on your laptop, and you pull it down and across and make sure that it highlights only the table with the cells that are populated. After you've done that, you release your mouse. You use your scroll bar to move, because if you left click on the table after you've highlighted it, everything is going to be undone. You do not want that to happen. So you use your scroll bar at the side and at the bottom to move across and up and down. After you have highlighted your table, you are going to right click, which gives you the list of options. After you've right clicked what you have highlighted, you select copy. When you select copy, you're supposed to see an animated line going around the section that you actually highlighted or copied. That is to tell you that you have copied the data from the spreadsheet. That is what that animation line is telling you. So after you have copied everything, do not close your spreadsheet. I repeat, do not close it. You are going to minimize it. How do you minimize it? You go to the top right hand corner where you see this icon looking like a dash, right? Or an underscore, whichever it looks like to you. And you select that option to minimize the spreadsheet. When you minimize the spreadsheet, you go back to your access, your database, your blank database that you had created. You go over to this section that says all access objects. Right here in this blank space, you're going to right click. And when you right click, you're going to see a list of options: category, sort by, view by, and paste. You are going to select the option that says paste. I select paste. Microsoft Access is going to give you a notification that asks you, right, does the first row of your data contain column headings? Yes, they do. So you select the option that says yes. Then they will notify you that all objects were imported successfully. You click on OK. And if you look to the left, in this column where it says tables, you will see task A. And if I double click on task A, you will realize that all the information that is on my spreadsheet, task A, is now located in my database, as you can see. Every single title and column from student ID straight throughout sponsorship. All right, good. So we're not finished. Looking back at the question said that we should create 3 tables. And the first table should be a personal data, right? So personal data would typically mean the name, first name, the student ID, first name, middle name, last name, gender, date of birth, and telephone number. That is the personal data of each student. That is what the only thing that we need in this table. How do we get rid of anything that we do not need in the table? Now, in database, there is something known as the design view. If you look to the top left-hand corner, right below the word file, you're going to see a protractor, a left arm, 90 degrees angle protractor, a pencil, and a ruler. And below that icon is the word view. If you select view, there are 2 options: data sheet view, which is the one that we are currently looking at, and then you have the design view. So the design view is where we're going to go next. So you select the design view. Wonderful. Now that we have selected the design view, your screen should change where you see field name and data type. And students, you should all know what a data type is, right? It tells the type of data that is within the field. All right. So we are going to delete the things that has nothing to do with the personal data of the students. All right. And before we said that student ID, first name, middle name, last name, gender, date of birth, and telephone is the only thing that we need for students' personal data. We are going to delete everything from mathematics straight through to sponsorship. How do we do that? You place your cursor beside the first row or the first field name that you wish to delete. When you place your cursor there, you should see an icon looking like an arrow that points to the right with the color or shade black. You select it, right? When you select it, you can select each field name that you do not want and delete it one by one, but that is time consuming. You can highlight the ones that you do not need. So you place the cursor there until the same icon appears. You hold on your left button of your mouse and you pull your mouse downward to highlight all the field names that you do not need. And then you press the delete button on your keyboard. And Microsoft Access is going to ask you if you're sure that you permanently want to delete these field names. And yes, we do. Click on yes. And there you go. it is deleted. Now make sure that your data type matches your field name correctly. All right, make sure it does that. Now, student ID is a short text because the student ID is a combination of letters and numbers. When there's a combination of letters and numbers, you use short text. If you're using just names, it will be short text. If it is gender, the same thing. If it is date of birth, it is date and time. If it is telephone number, it is short text. Reason being, the dashes that separates the numbers. So when you have 876 dash 123 dash, because the dash is available within those series of digits, you cannot make the data type a number. The data type for the telephone would have to be a short text. So now that we have reviewed our data types for each field, we're going to move on to the next step. The next step is the description. We are going to describe the purpose of each field, right? We're going to make it very straightforward and to the point. There's no reason for any long sentences. So you looking at the sample would have an idea what I mean. So for the first one that says student ID, it's going to have store student ID number. Then we're going to move on to first name, store first name of student. We move on to the middle name, store middle name of student. Last name, store last name of student. Store the gender of the student. Store the, you don't have to type out date of birth, you can just initialize it, DOB. Store the date of birth of the student. And the final one, store the telephone number of the student. My apologies. Good. Now that we have done that, please remember this carefully. The question says that ensure that each field has an appropriate name, data type, field size, and validation. So we have the appropriate data type, the appropriate field name, right? Now we're going to look at field size. Now, when you select each field, you realize that here that says field properties, there's a list of different things that are there, right? For each field name, it is different, right? So each field name has its own field property. So we're going to look at all the field names and their properties. So for student ID, the field size will be 6. And let me make a point and listen carefully. The reason being why my field size for my student ID is 6 is because I only use 6 icons or symbols for my student ID. And let me show you what I mean. If we look at if you look at my sample, it said STD-10. If you count it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 6 characters in that makes up my student ID. So that's the reason why I have 6 as the field size. So if your student ID on your database and spreadsheet is 10 characters, please make your field size 10 characters. If it is 5 characters, please make your field size 5 characters. All right? There's no need for yours to be the same size as same amount of characters as mine. It doesn't make a difference. All right? Now, the reason why we will typically make it 6 or the exact amount of characters that the student ID actually have is because that we do not want any mistake happen where an extra character is being placed within the column, right? Which can cause an error. So if it is 6, if the field size only can hold 6 characters, then it is less likely that a mistake can happen where an extra letter or an extra digit will be placed on the student ID. All right. So this is why database is so organized, or helps you to organize data properly. All right, moving on. So we're looking at student ID. So the format could not be currency. All right. You can just delete that if you have that on yours. For the caption, you have student ID. All right. Now, everything else, right? You can allow everything else to stay, except here where it says that the index says duplicates. No duplicates. Yes, no duplicates. And the reason why we do not want any duplicates is because no student ID should repeat. Every child should have their own student ID, so we don't want any duplicate. All right, so we move on to first name. We take our currency. Field size, you can make it 25. Now, you're not going to check every student name to see the average character that the name has. So when it comes to the rest of the field names, just give it a number, right? Because you may have students from different parts of the world where their names are spelled totally different. So you give it 25, but do not let it stay at the default field size, which is 255. All right. I'm going to allow my last name field size to be 30. All right. Gender. For me, my gender field size will be 1. Why 1? Because in my table, I use M or F for male or female. So I only need 1 character in the column. There's no reason for me to have anything more than that. If you have the word itself, male or female, then you know that you're going to use the amount of characters that females make up. So female has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 characters. So for persons who spell out the word female and male, make your gender field size 6. All right. Caption, gender. I don't believe I did a caption for these. All right. Date of birth, the month, the day, and the year. All right. You can organize it the way that you wish. All right. So if you want to have a long date where it says Thursday, November, such and such and such, it's up to you. All right. But I recommend that you keep it the way it is by default. And then telephone. All right. Telephone will have how many characters? Let us check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 characters, which would include the 2 dashes, the 876, and the person's number. All right. So now that we have done all of that, there's one more thing left to do. Now, I taught you guys about primary key, and a primary key uniquely identifies an individual within a database, something that only the person uniquely have associated with them. Just like how your fingerprint is unique to you, no one else has it. The student ID in this case is unique to each student because they will be the only student with that student ID. So we're going to make the student ID a primary key. So you're going to select, you're going to highlight the field, student ID. And if you look at your top left-hand corner, you're going to see the option that says primary key with a key at the top of it. Select that option. When you have done so, you're going to see a key icon beside student ID, as you can see there. All right. After you have done that, you can either click on save up here. When you click on save, Microsoft will say some data may be lost. The size of one or more fields has been changed to a shorter size. If data is lost, validation rules may be violated as a result. Do you want to continue anyway? Yes, I do. And now I have saved my first table. So you can close it. After you have closed it, you reopen the table to see if all the necessary changes were made. Now, for this case, everything else is there, but realize that these came back. All right. If this happens to you, there's no need for you to panic. Just cancel, just highlight these, right? Delete them, close, go to your right hand corner over here that said close task A. It's going to ask if you want to save. You said yes. Reopen it again, and there you go. All right. Now, for example, if you look at my telephone number, I guess I don't know, what would you say now? Count the numbers properly. I think it's 12. I said 12, right? But I don't know what happens to my telephone number. Anyways, that is the least. Just make sure you count your telephone numbers properly first before anything. All right? Good. So we're going to move on. We're going to move on. So we are finished with this table. Finished with this table. So this table should have student ID, first name, middle name, last name, gender, date of birth, and telephone number. Nothing more, nothing less. And then you're going to close the table by same X to the right hand corner that says close task A. You close it. After you close it, you right click on task A and you rename it. Right? So now the question said that we should give suitable or appropriate names for each table. So we're going to call this student or students or student data and press enter. And there you have your student data. All right, so this is how you get your first table in database. Now, after you have done the first, table, we're going to begin with the others. All right, so we're going to go back to our spreadsheet, and that's the reason why I told you should minimize it and not close it. So we're going to go back to the spreadsheet. Now our spreadsheet would have already been copied. You can, as you can see, the animation is still going around it. You can press escape on your keyboard and just right click again and select copy. Now you have copied it again, you minimize it because we're going to use it once more. You go to the far left in this blank section or area. You right click, select paste. It's going to ask you if the same question it asked you previously. All right. You have your task A there. You open it. There you go. All right. Good. So we are going to go into the design view. All right. Good. Now, the question says that we need a table to store subject information. All right, so we're going to look at the subject information, the things that we need relating to the subject. All right, so remember, because student ID is our primary key, we need to have student ID in all our tables. All right, so what we only need is information relating to the subject. All right, so first name, middle name, last name, gender, date of birth, and telephone. We do not need those information, so we're going to delete those first. Subject information is what we need. So mathematics, yes, we need that. English, yes, we need that. Total subjects, yes, we need that. Number of practicals and number of orals. Those are the things that typically relate to the subject. Nothing more, nothing less. All right, so everything below that we're going to delete. So registration fee to sponsorship needs to be deleted. Good. Now that we have done that, remember to change the fee size for your student ID to 6. All right. Now, only the student data you will be required to add a description for the field names. All right. So there's no need for you to put the description in all the tables, only the student data table, right? Or personal data, whichever you name your field name. You don't have to name your field name how I name mine. You can name yours the way you want. All right. So remember the data type for student ID is going to be short text, mathematics. All right. You're going to take out that from currency. But before we move any further, the mathematics, remember in the spreadsheet, it is organized in a way where it tells yes or no if the child is doing the math or not. So we're going to do that as well within the database. So the data type that we're going to choose for mathematics, right? So you select, you go on mathematics, you go to the section beside it, the column that says data type, you select and then you press or select the arrow beside and you select the option that says yes or no, as you can see. All right. Caption, remember the caption for that would be mathematics. Good. Then you move to English and you do the same, yes or no. Caption, English. Good. Total subjects. For total subjects, the number data type can stay. All right. What we need to change though within the field properties is field size, right? So you're going to change it from double to integer. The format is 0 and the decimal places should be 0. For number of practicals, change it to integer. Decimal places, just select that row, backspace, and type in 0. Do the same thing for orals. You select that option, you go to the right where you see that oral is, You press it down and you see byte, integer, long integer, single, double, replication ID, and decimal. We're going to select integer. All right, decimal places, delete auto and type in 0. All right, after we have done all of that, then we exit by closing the table that says close task A. Microsoft is going to prompt you to save everything that you have done. Yes, you want to save. Yes. All right, let me open it. And there you go. The student ID, because remember, the student ID uniquely identifies each student. So if we know the student ID for each student, we know that, okay, this student did math, this student didn't do English. They're doing 8 subjects, they're doing 3 practicals and 2 orals. All right. This is what the question is requiring from us. We're going to close the table once more and rename it subject data. Subject data. Good. Press enter. And there you go. So we have gone 2 tables now. We are on our way. All right. So we are going to head back to the spreadsheet file. All right. As I said to you before, when you return to the spreadsheet file and you see the animation still going around what you have copied, just press escape once, it will be removed. However, all the data will still be highlighted, and you just right click once more, copy, go to your access. All right, when you go to your access, you go to the column to your left hand side where there's a blank area. You right click and select the option that says paste. It's going to ask you the same question it asked you for the last 2. Your answer should be yes and okay. Once more, you see task A showing up right there. So the next set of information that we need is what? The question says we're going to need a table to store payment information. Payment. We need to know who paid what and who did not pay and what did they pay for. All right. So we go to the design view. Remember how to go to the design view? To your top left hand corner where you see the protractor, pencil, and ruler. You'll click on that icon and you will automatically be sent to the design view section. Now, what are the things that we need for the payment table? Anything that relates to money. That's what we know, where you can make payment. So registration fee is 1, the total subject fee is 1, the total practical fee is 1, the total overall fee is 1, and the total fees charge is another. All these things are things that we need in the payment table. All right, so we're going to delete what we do not need. So from first name to English, we do not need those. So you delete that. All right. Total subjects. Do we need it? No. So you delete it. Number of practicals. All those things, do we need them? No. Delete those as well. Good. Moving on. So the registration fee has to do with payment. The total subject fee has to do with payment. The total practical fee has to do with payment. Total oral fee, fees charged. And we're going to let the sponsorship stay right there. Because we need to know who got 8 or more subjects, right? Now, all of this would typically be currency. However, for sponsorship, it would be yes or no. Good. All right. So please remember the format is currency. The decimal places should be 2 decimal places for each one of these. total practical fee, total oral fee, total fees charged, 2 as well. Caption for sponsorship is sponsorship. Good. All right. When we have done all of this, all right, we are going to save it. All right. Please remember to check everything. All right, good. So the X to the right hand side of your table that says close task A, you're going to click on it. Microsoft Access is going to ask you if you want to save the changes. Yes, I do. Yes, again. You open your file and then look. All you're seeing is just the columns relating to payment. All right. So we are going to rename our task A for this one. Student payment. Payment. You can name it payment data or payment of students, whatever it may be. All right. Let's just look back at the question. So it says that ensure that each field has an appropriate name, data type, field size, and validation if needed. Now we have not done a validation as yet, but there's one that should be done. So we're going to go to students data, the design view. We're going to head to gender. Right here where you see validation rule. So for the validation rule, it's just a requirement for the question. It will give you marks, but the validation rule typically is a rule that you, the user, would place on the database, where if it is breached, you will receive, the person that would have breached it will receive and validation text. And let me demonstrate what I mean. So remember to go to students data or personal data, whatever you have named that table. Select gender, then you go to the field properties below and select the row across from validation rule, and you're going to type open quotation M close quotation or open quotation F close quotation. Now, if you type out the word male or female, you're going to do the same thing, right? You're not going to have M alone. You're going to have MALE close quotation or open quotation FEMALE close quotation. After you have done that, you head to the validation text section and type in invalid data entered. Invalid data entered. And then we're going to save that. All right. So you can close the table, ask if I want to save it. Yes, yes. Now let me explain to you what the validation rule purpose is. So for this one, Matthew Warner, I have M for male. If I should delete the M and I use R and move on to a different column, you realize that it says invalid data entered. The same thing that is the validation text that I typed in. All right. So if I remove the R and place back the M, I won't have that problem. All right. Same thing for female. If I remove the F and put a different letter other than M or F and move on, it's going to tell me that invalid data entered. All right. So that's the purpose of a validation rule and a validation text. All right. I'm going to do the tutorial in sections. All right. So I'm going to end this first tutorial here. So I would want everybody to follow this tutorial to complete the 3 tables first before I move on to the queries and send you that tutorial. So make sure that you name your tables appropriately, right? Easy to understand by the teacher or whoever is viewing your database. Make sure that all the information that is required of you is needed. Check back, you go in the design view and check the field name, check the properties, check the field size, check your description, check the data type. All those stuff you're going to check. All right. So this is the tutorial part 1, and enjoy the rest of your day.